All right. Where's everybody? Must be the last class, huh? All right. Waiting for some of the folks in Seattle to join. So I thought maybe we should talk about some new technology. We have talking about NoSQL databases for the last couple weeks. We introduced XML, right? We introduced Java Web Services where we could work with JSON. And today I'd like to introduce a brand new database, MongoDB. All right, is that what we said that we would talk about today? All right, so we have people from Seattle joining. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes, great. Okay. Remember, I have my phone here next to me. If you have questions, please text me so I can see that you have a question. When I'm recording, I might not see your the chat window. Okay. So as I was saying, that today I'd like to introduce a brand new database. We've been talking about relational databases all semester, and we such as SQL Server or MySQL. Most of you are using those types of databases. Some of you ventured and played around with MongoDB. Not all of you. So I'd like to talk about that topic today and how we can go about using that database to create an application. And towards the end, I would like to talk about the rubric and talk about the next week. We're meeting next week, right? To present your demo your applications from Monday through Thursday. Some of you double booked, so I'm not sure if you are in the same team. Especially on Wednesday and Thursday, everybody's booked double booked on the last 2 days. So what we'll do is that we'll try to team. There'll be some of the TAs there to help out. So if we do have 2 people presenting at the same time, perhaps there'll be TAs to support that case. Okay. My hope is that if you are double booked, is that you belong to the same team. Hopefully, that's what happened. Anyway, so let's talk about a little bit about MongoDB and NoSQL in general. So anyway, I mean, databases have changed somewhat dramatically the last couple of years. Well, not changed, but have evolved to solve today's problems. Right? And today's problems are based on the fact that we're all going mobile. Right? All of us have some kind of mobile device with them, and we're generating streams of data that really are in such amounts that today's relational databases would not be able to perhaps grab and record all this data. Right? It's just growing exponentially. I take my phone and I wave it around and I'm generating a stream of data, right? And somebody's capturing this data, right? And somebody's mining this data, is trying to analyze it and to try to sell me some kind of service, and try to create some kind of relationships between me and where I am and what stores are near me, and try to create a profile around me to identify patterns and try to understand me from my surroundings, from my behavior, right? And perhaps even predict to some degree my what am I going to do? What are my preferences? What I would like to purchase, right? Somebody trying to sell me something. So today's databases have are trying to address this challenge, right, that collectively has been termed as the big data problem, right? We're trying to deal with such amounts of data. We're generating such amounts of data that perhaps we cannot process it fast enough. We're processing more data than we can possibly process, right? So how do you deal with these issues, right? Also, data. We want the data to be close as possible to whoever is going to use that data, right? Google wants to be able to respond to queries in sub-millisecond time, right? And be relevant to the location where you are. So I mean, what are the kinds of architectures and what kind of the databases that support these kind of things, right? We need databases that to be distributed across large geographies, right? To have what we have been kind of going against, redundancy, right? We have been this mantra that we're trying to reduce redundancy. But at some point we said that if we could manage the risk of inconsistency, if we could manage that risk, then redundancy is okay, right? The reason why we try to remove redundancy is to eliminate the risk of inconsistency, right? But if we could have algorithms and systems and if the database would allow me to have managed redundancy, right, then it would be okay. I would eliminate the risk of inconsistency and have all the benefits of redundancy, right? So now today's databases are redundant, right? They're perhaps replicated across many geographies, right? And depending on your particular location, you might be hitting a database that is closer to you, right, in the eastern border, as opposed to if you are, all over in India or China or some other geography. You might have a redundant database that have data that is perhaps more relevant to your geolocation. Okay. So some of these are some challenges that relational databases perhaps are not best suited for, right? And obviously there have been research in alternative ways, alternative databases. I mean, what would databases look like today if we would have to reinvent them, right? What would they look like today, right? And we see a big crop of new databases coming out that are taking on this challenge of big data. One of them that I'd like to talk about today is MongoDB. MongoDB is an open source database that supports a lot of this, the mechanisms that to tackle this big data issue. Right? You have it auto scales, it manages the redundancies, it copies itself, and it can self adjust. You all see me there? So I'd like to talk about MongoDB today. As we'll see, it's another database based on document storage. Storing documents as opposed to storing rows or tables or relationships. It's not a relational database, right? It does not support joins, right? It does not support the fact that you split the data across many collections, and then you have to reconstitute the data by joining various tables. It does not support that. What it does support is documents that nested documents and hierarchies of documents in a format, in a textual format that's should be familiar to us. We've looked at it before. It's the JSON format, okay, as opposed to another textual document-based format as XML that we saw a couple weeks ago, right? That was another text-based, hierarchy-based kind of database, right? That allowed us to easily parse it, easily look at it, perhaps even modify by hand textually, right? And we'll look at MongoDB. MongoDB uses instead JSON, right? And because it stores its data natively in JSON has become popular for implementing highly scalable web applications, right? Where web applications are, you have a client that is it's interacting with the user, it's manipulating perhaps data represented as JSON already, because it's JavaScript running on the client, right? Running on the browser. It's already representing data, has a data model already represented in JSON, and it'd be nice if we could store that data already in the correct format in a JSON database, right? This would eliminate the necessity to do conversion, right? Data model conversion, which has been a challenge, as we've seen when we looked at ORMs such as JPA or Entity Framework. In those cases, you had what we sometimes refer to as the impedance between these two worlds, right? The impedance between the object world and the relational world, right? How do you convert a data model represented in objects, right, in RAM? How do you convert that is an object-oriented representation? How do you convert it into relational representation, right? And we saw that there is not necessarily a unique way of converting it, right? Right. If you remember, we had to give annotations to specify how exactly we wanted to represent objects in the table, right? We saw that generalization was not necessarily directly implemented in the relational database, and we had actually 3 different options that we could represent generalization, right? And we had to decide which one do we want, right? Also, one-to-many, there were several ways of representing it. Whether there were a mapping table, which is the default, right? Some mapping table that says, this is the strong side, this is the weak side of the relationship. That's the default mapping, right? If you have one-to-many in the object, by default, it represents using a mapping table. But if instead we want a relational, instead we want foreign key representation, right? We had to give it the hints. We had to give it the annotations that's the way we wanted to represent. So there is no, the one-to-one unique way of representing one data model to another data model, right? But whereas here, if we can guarantee that the data model is JSON all across, you minimize the need to do the conversion, right? And additionally, the middle tier, right, where we've been implementing JWS, we've been implementing the data model, the object data model, right, the server, right. That too needed, not only did you have a data model in the client, you had a data model in the middle tier, right, and you have a data model in the database. Today, I'd like to introduce another middle tier technology. We're gonna replace the server again with a server that natively uses JSON as its data model, right? And we'll introduce Node.js as our middle tier. Okay. And let me just perhaps draw here what the architecture of these applications might look like. Can you all see me over there? So here you have the database here, which is not the relational database, right? In this case, for today, we're going to be using MongoDB, Mongo. Can you see that? It says MongoDB there. Which represents its data as documents, as JSON documents, text documents that are formatted in the JSON format. Here we're going to have the end user, right, interacting with some kind of user interface, through a browser that represents its data model, again using JSON, right, and using the language JavaScript. Right, and somehow we want this data that is being generated or consumed by our client to easily be convertible into a native JSON representation. Right. So we already did this, right? I mean, we already had, for the middle tier, we had here JWS, right? And for the database, we had a relational database, right? And to talk to the relational database, we used JPA, correct? Right. So we had here JPA talking to a relational database, RDBMS, right? And JPA would convert the relational database into Java objects, right? And then those will be converted back into JSON for the user to consume using technologies such as Jersey and Jackson. Correct? That's what we did a couple of weeks ago. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace this because notice the how many levels of conversion there are, right? You come from JSON, has to be converted and converted into a Java data model, yes? Right? And that Java data model can then needs to be converted into relational database. Okay? And then backwards, right? You read it from the database, the ORM JPA converts it into a Java data model, right? Or .NET, C#, whatever, right? And then that data model needs to be converted back into JSON. You see, you have 2 layers of conversion here. You see that? Right? So what we're going to do today is we're going to remove, we're going to replace this. Right? Instead of having another data model, we have 3. We used to have 3 data models, right? The relational, we have an object, Java, right? And then JavaScript over here if you had the server consuming this. We're going to have JavaScript all through. Right? We're going to replace. We're going to keep this the way it is. We're going to replace the middle tier with Node.js, okay, which is a server that it's a middle tier technology that can be programmed using the JavaScript programming language. Right? Its native data model is JSON, right? Is JavaScript. Okay. So what we're doing here is that the layers of conversion are removed, right? You have native JSON representation here, native JSON representation here, and stored natively as JSON. There is no conversion. Okay. So first, let's focus first on this part. MongoDB. I've already installed it, but it's pretty easy to install and get it started. Then Node.js, and then finally this over here. Okay. Together, right? This stack of technology. Some people refer to it as the mean stack. M for Mongo, N for Node. Here we had JWS, right? What was JWS? The web service, right? It's what allowed us to map URLs, right? It allows us to implement RESTful services, right? And allows us to map URLs to executable, right? Executable code here, yes? Right? So the equivalent in this new using Node.js instead of a Java solution, Node.js is Express, E. That's the E in mean. And finally, A stands for the technology that we use to render that data here in the front end, right, which is Angular. So this is Mongo, Express, Angular, and Node.js. Okay. And tonight is one of the one of the things that are growing, becoming more and more popular out there. More and more people are looking for these very lightweight, very lightweight kinds of solutions. Okay, very lightweight database, very lightweight server. Excuse me. Let me turn this off. Sorry about that. Okay. So yeah, so we'll look at this. All right, are we good? All right. Any questions out there in Seattle? No. Okay. I had a phone call. I hope it wasn't from Seattle. Again, if you have a question, please text me since I don't see your the chat window. All right, so let's get started here. Can someone verify that I am recording? If you could go to my YouTube channel and see if, or if you go to my profile as well, you should see that it's recording. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. Okay, so to get started, we need to install the various software. Okay, and the two pieces of software that at a bare minimum we're going to need here is to install the database. It's if you go to mongodb.org, you can download and install databases for various machines, right? Windows, Mac, Linux. You can download it. You have it for various. You can download it for Windows, for Mac, Solaris, Linux, whatnot. If you download it and you install it, what it'll do, which I did already, it's installed on my machine, it will create a directory. It will create, let's see, I believe it's here. Nope, it's the other one then. MongoDB, there it is. So it creates a directory inside of your program files, right? And in there, you have the license, you have, in bin, you're going to have several executables, right? Of interest, it's going to be two of these are going to be of peculiar interest, right? That one of them is going to be the server itself, right? That's MongoDB. This is equivalent of perhaps, MySQLD, or, the actual server starts up and listens to a particular port, okay? The other one is Mongo, which is a very simple client. It's a console-based client that allows you to interact with the database. Right? You can look at the databases. You can look at the data that is stored there. You can do queries and whatnot. Okay. Now, by default, when you start the server, it will look for DB, where is it? Yeah, it will look for a folder off of your root, right, called data, and under there, DB. Okay, so it's going to look for that folder, right? So by default, you should create that folder, empty it, right? Empty folder, nothing in there, right? And that's where it's going to store all sorts of things. Okay, you can change the location of the folder, right? But then you would have to tell MongoDB when it starts up to use some other folder. Okay, but by default, this is where it looks for the database. Make sense? All right. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start the server. Also, what I did is this location, this bin directory, right? I've added to my command, right, to the path, right, so that I can execute MongoDB from anywhere in the command line. Yes, right. So I can just type MongoD. It starts up. It says that it's listening at a particular port. Right? It's listening at the standard port, right, 27017. Right. Again, you can change that, but the default port that it listens at is that. Right. So it's listening at localhost, right, 127.0.0.1, that particular port. Make sense? All right. So it's listening there. Let's minimize this for now. Let's start up another instance, PowerShell, and if we execute Mongo, what it's going to do is going to try and connect to the server, right? There it is. So it's connected, and it goes into a prompt, a command line that allows you to interact with the database, right? You can ask it what databases are there. Here are some databases, and then you can say that you want to use a particular database. Very similar to what you might do with other relational databases. So let's use test. Once you select a particular database, instead of tables, we call them collections, right? Collections of data, right? And instead of rows, right? A table is a collection of rows, yes, or a collection of records, correct? Here, instead of records, we call them documents. Okay. So here we can say what are the collections? Show collections. So these are all the collections. There are cats, kittens, to-dos, trips, and users, and Cytera schemas. So these are the equivalent of tables in a relational database. All right? Okay. And then there's all sorts of commands that I can query. I can see what the data is there. I can filter, I can insert, I can delete. All the CRUD operations you would expect with a regular with any database, right? So I can say maybe db dot, right? All commands starts with db dot, and then the collection that you want to operate on, right? So let's see, db users. And then you can do all sorts of things, right? You can say dot, I want to insert a new user, dot, I want to remove a user, I want to update a user, I want to find users, given it some kind of predicate, right? The basic 4 operations, right? Select, insert, update, and delete. Over here, they're called, instead of select, it's find, right? And find, like select, it takes a predicate, So where, and then some predicate, right? Where this is true, where that is true, and whatever that is true, right? The only thing you cannot do here is join, right? In a relational database, you have various tables, yes, and the data is spread over several tables, right? And to reconstitute the data, you need to find the records that are in one table that match records that are in another table by some relationship, right? Between relational foreign key going out to some primary key, right? No such thing here. The data is meant to be stored nested, right? If there's a parent-child relationship, right? The intention is that that child data lives inside as part, right? As a embedded document inside of the parent document. Okay. Obviously, this like XML, like we talked about this in XML, you might have redundancy, right? Where you might have that several people live at the same address, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to record the address several times, right? Under the person parent, right? The same issues that we talked about in XML about redundancy and consistency, we have the same issues here, right? The best that you could do is have that address, right, live as a separate collection, right? And you do the joining yourself. You do the join, right? At the application level, not at the database level. The database does not support joins, right? What you need to do is, right? I know the ID of an address, and I know the IDs of I can have keys, right, or values that relate to one another, that reference each other, right? But there's no such joining, right? I need to know what the ID of one is, and then query the other table for that ID, right? Do the join myself at the application level, not at the database level, right? We'll see examples of that in a minute. Okay. So anyways, so users, if you want to find something or list or select the data, the equivalent here is find, right? And its methods. It's like a function call. Right? Here's find. If there are no predicates, that means that I want all documents, right, or all records, right? I guess there are only 2 users here. Let's see if there's something more interesting. db dot trips dot find. Anything here? Okay. Anything else? db dot Cytera schemas find. Okay. Notice the data that is being printed out, right? It's JSON. See that? It's JSON. It's very hard to read. Very hard to read. So we could append, right? We can append other things to this. We can say, I want this to format it pretty so I can read it, right? So there it is. So now it uses tabbing and white spaces so that it's more consumable by human beings, right? So here we see that there are 2 records, right? This is one of them, right? And here's the second one, right? And we see that the first one, notice that they all seem to have this ID, this primary key over here that uniquely identifies the record, right? Well, sorry, they're not records here. We don't call them records here. We call them documents. Okay. And we have a couple of attributes. We have a name, right? So that's the equivalent to a field, right? In a relational database, right? And we have a value, and then here we have the same field and another value. You see that? Okay. Another thing that is that is common in these types of databases as there is no schema. There is no such thing as a schema, right? As opposed to a relational database, you have a very well-defined, very well-structured schema, right? You say that these are the fields, these are the types of those fields, right? And no other fields are allowed here, right? Whereas over here, there is no schema. It is perfectly fine for one document to have certain fields, and other documents have completely different fields. It's okay, right? And there is no check, there is no verification, there's no strong typing that a date is really a date, right? Or that a number is really a number, or that a string is a string, right? You can so it could be very, very jarring from somebody who's coming from a very strongly typed world, right? Strongly typed. Java is very strongly typed, and the relational database is also very strongly typed, and you have all these, making sure that referential integrity is supported. That if you delete one, you have to delete the other. All that, it's much more laxed here. Okay, the schemas is whatever you want. It's whatever you want. I need a new field. I'll just insert a new field. Okay, nothing is stopping me from doing that. Right? Again, this might be jarring for us that are coming from a strongly typed world, right? But what these databases are going for is not. I mean, obviously we want to minimize inconsistency or remove inconsistencies, right? What we're going here is for speed, right? Is we want to go, the sub-millisecond response time. Be able to answer queries, extremely fast, be extremely redundant, and be distributed across geographically, right? Be extremely robust, right? If I have the database, the data replicated in several places, if one of my machines goes down, it's okay. It's replicated across many machines, right? I can still survive a catastrophe, right? Anyway, so let's insert another one here. I can say, DB. Wait, we did fine. Okay, we can query. Let's query a couple things, right? Before we did a query, and we had no predicate, right? Or we can give it a predicate. We can say I'm looking for the ones whose name, right, is schema. And notice that it's this one, right? Here's this record or this document where the field name is schema, right? See that? Or I could have said where name is schema 11166. Okay. If I do that and do enter, right, it just returns that one. Let me do it pretty. It just returns that one document, right? Or if I change this and I look for the other field, which is schema 11166, right? So schema 11166, it returns the other document, right? You see that? And notice what's in here, right? Not only do I have fields that could be a string or an integer or any primitive data type, right? I have fields that could be arrays. Look at that, right? Fields that can be collections of things, right? Right, where you can have this nesting of data, right? Data nested within data, embedded documents, right? The other one I think is a little more interesting. Notice that we have fields, we have the name, right? We have fields being an array that includes two other documents, and one of these documents themselves contain another array. You see that? So this could be indefinitely nested, right? Documents containing documents containing documents, right? And this is how we data model in MongoDB, right? There's a one-to-many relationship between schemas having many fields, yes? Each field having many LOVs, list of values, LOVs, yeah? So we have, this is how you model, one-to-many, one-to-many, okay? You can also do, obviously, all the other types of modeling, many-to-many, right? We have mapping tables or association relationships as well. You can do those as well, right? But I mean, another alternative would have been to have these fields have its own collection, right? Where you have a collection of schemas and then related to a collection of fields, right? So a separate document is in a separate collection. And what I might have here is an array of IDs, right? An array of IDs that allow me to find those fields, right? Okay, to see which one are related to me, which one are my children. That's an alternative, and MongoDB does support that. Okay. So anyway, there are many commands here, instead of covering those commands, I'm going to cover them from code, which are basically the same commands, right? But I'm going to do it from code. So let's move a little higher from here and see how we can access it from up here from code over here in Node.js, right? And we're gonna hit the database, and we'll do the same commands that we could do in the database. We can do it from within the middle tier. Okay. All right. Take my sweater. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Wait. Is this working? All right. So this is Mongo. I'm going to leave it running. I'm going to make it go down for a second. All right. So let me introduce the middle tier now. So the middle tier that we're going to use is Node.js, right? And to install Node.js, you would go to nodejs.org. Okay? You install it, it downloads for you an executable, right? That installs Node.js locally on your machine. And what it does is that where is it? In your program files. Right, it installs this directory, Node.js. Right? Under there, we have several executables that are of interest here. Two of them that are very common that we're going to be using today is Node, the actual executable, right? And the only thing this is, right? The only thing Node is, right, is an interpreter that can run JavaScript on the server, right? As opposed to run JavaScript on a browser, right? Whenever we talk about JavaScript, the first thing we think about is, oh, it's in a browser, right? Well, no. Node allows us to execute JavaScript on a machine, right? On a local desktop, right? And I mean, if we're just that, then it wouldn't be very interesting, okay? Equally likely if Java was just it's standard libraries, it wouldn't be very interesting, okay? Or C#, right? What makes any language or any platform interesting is the libraries, right? All the sorts of the family of libraries that get written for that particular platform, okay? Java has and C# has a pretty extensive set of libraries, distributed as DLLs or jar files, right? And we've been using quite a few in the Java world, right? We've seen how to install Jackson or Jersey or XML parsers or JPA, and these are all jar files that allow you to do all sorts of things. Very, very powerful, very interesting things. Yes, and that's what makes that platform, interesting. Yes. Well, similarly, Node.js has its own set of libraries, right? And that set of library is what makes Node what's interesting, very interesting to look at. Right? One particular library that we're going to be looking at today is Express. Okay, it's the equivalent of JWS in Java. Right? What does JWS allows us to do? Right? It's the equivalent of Web API in the .NET framework. Right? It allows us to create web services. Yes, it allows us to map a URL, an incoming URL, right, to executable code. Right, here's a URL that is coming from a third party that wants to talk to us through some kind of network, yes? through a URL, and we can listen in for those incoming URLs, yes, and then execute some code. Make sense? Right. So that's one of the libraries that we're going to look at today. So how do we manage these libraries? Well, npm. That's what we're going to look at today. npm. npm, right, is Node's package manager. npm Node package manager. Okay. That allows us to install any of these packages. Right. You can browse to a npm. Right. npm, here's the repository, and it includes a plethora of packages that open source packages that people have and companies have been posting, right, making available for everybody to use for free, right? One of the more, and here they're listed by which most popular, right? If you notice now, Express is up there. Express is one of the libraries we're going to look at today, right? That, again, the only thing this does, it allows us to create web services, listen in for incoming connections, URL connections. The other one that we're going to be looking at is Mongoose, right? For those of us that feel somewhat discouraged by a database that has no schema, right? That has no data typing, right? That has no verification of data types and whatnot, that has no data model, right? That allows us to create things, willy-nilly. Mongoose is our answer, right? Mongoose is what Java's ORM JPA is. It's the equivalent of Java's JPA or .NET's entity framework. Okay, it allows us to create a data model, right? And it handles the mechanisms that convert that data model, which is JSON, a JSON data model, convert it into the equivalent JSON data model that would go stores itself in MongoDB. Okay, but it adds all the nice things that we are familiar with, right? Like strong typing, right? It verifies that if I'm trying to insert a date, it verifies that it's a date, right? It verifies that these are strings or integers or whatnot. Yes, it enforces some measure of organization, of structure. Okay, and again, it's a very popular package, right? That allows us to interact with the database with MongoDB in a more structured environment. Right. The JSON that gets stored is pretty much the same that we're going to be working on, right? But it goes through the Mongoose engine, right? That does the verification, does the validation, does make sure that things are being stored correctly. Make sense? All right. Okay, so let's get started. So let's go to documents, mean, and let's create here a directory CS5200. And in here, let me go in there. I need another command prompt. Let me bring another command prompt. I'm going to do CD to that directory. Okay, and that directory right now is empty. Okay. So one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to do npm init. Right. So this is Node Package Manager. Initialize this as a Node project. Okay, it's just going to go through some questions of what do you want to name your project. Initially, it's going to call it CS5200. What version? 1.00. Maybe a brief description. Who the entry point. So if I build something here, I could I could make this into a package, right, and publish it up in npm so that others could use it, right? So if I find out that this is a very nice thing that I want to share with the community, right, I could package this into a module and publish it in npm so that they could reuse it for free. Okay, and typically these modules need an initial a JavaScript entry point where the module gets instantiated and where it runs and it exports all its availability. We're not going to be doing that today. But by default, it's saying that is that the JS that you want to use? Sure. Test commands and no test commands. If there's a Git repository, it could, we could link it to a Git repository so that it gets published. I'm not going to do that either. No keywords. The other thing is I'm going to just say that I am the author, and that's it. It is okay. Yes. Say yes. The only thing that it does is that it creates this package.json. Package.json. Right. And this is the equivalent in Java as a meta-inf or module descriptor, right? It describes the module, and it's only text, right? You can just print it out. It's just text, and it basically has the information that it asks me, but in textual format. It's a JSON. See that? It's a JSON in JSON format. Somebody's going to read this and make any sense out of it, right? The only thing that we're going to use this for, it's not even required, right? But the only thing that we're going to use this for is that as I install packages such as Express, Mongoose, right? It's going to record the dependencies of my project. Right? It's going to say, oh, for your project to work, you need Mongoose, and you need Express, and you need all these things, right? So it's going to be recorded here, so that if I ever publish this, maybe in GitHub for you to download later on tonight or whenever, right? You could download this, right, without actually downloading any of my packages, and you could reinstall all the dependencies, right? This is very similar if you've used Maven, right? Anybody use Maven? Maven in Java, right? You can create all the dependencies of your project. It says that your project depends on these other libraries, right? And Maven, what it does is in a POM file, right? In XML, it records all these dependencies so that if somebody wants to replicate your project, what Maven does is that it reads the dependencies, right, and it goes off and downloads all the jar files, right, so that whenever you distribute, you don't have to provide all those jar files, right? I mean, all those jar files is a lot of space, right? And it's always the same jar file. Why would I replicate that, right? You can download it yourself. So what Maven or NPM do is that I only need to know the dependencies. I'll download it myself, right? So once you have those dependencies at home, you can just say npm install, right? And the install will read this package JSON, will look at the dependencies, and will download all the libraries that it needs. Make sense? Now, if you want to replicate this later on. Anyway, okay. So let's create here a very simple. Let's look at that directory. We have JSON. There it is, right? Okay, let's create a couple things here. Let's create our first application, our first Node application, right? And I'm going to call it app.js. Okay, I'm going to open it up. There's nothing in there really. I could say something like, something that I could do from a browser, right? What could I do? I could say hello world from a browser, right? So I can do the same thing here. I can say console log hello world. So that's my hello world Node.js application. And I'm going to close that. Well, I'm going to leave it open right there. And from the command line, there it is, app.js. I can run it from Node. Remember, it's that executable that we installed earlier, right? It's in program files, yes, right? I added that directory to my path so I can run Node from anywhere. I'm going to say Node app.js, and there it is, hello world. Right? So basically, that's all Node is. The only thing Node is a interpreter, right? That can run JavaScript on a desktop. That's all it is. Okay. So anything you have seen that you can write, functions, variables, JSON, arrays, anything you could possibly think that you can do in JavaScript, you could write it here. Okay. Everybody okay? All right. All right. So that's not a very interesting application. We want to start talking to a database, right? So let's do that. Let's do that. And for that, we're going to use Mongoose. So let's visit Mongoose. Okay. So Mongoose. Okay, to install Mongoose, there it is. It's one of the packages in NPM. It tells you how to install it. You say NPM, and we're going to click there. And The only thing we're going to add here is --save. That's all we're going to add here, right? What this is going to do is that it's going to update my package.json. All right, let's look at the package.json before we do this, right? So here's our package.json. This is what it looks like right now. Right? It has no dependencies. Right? No dependencies. Let's close it. Right? It just has license, author, test, scripts, main, description, and name. Let's close that. If I run this, it's going to go off and connect to the repository, and it's going to start downloading the necessary libraries, right, from Mongoose. Okay. All right. And what it does, if I revisit my directory, notice that now I have an additional directory in there. You see that? Node_modules. Meaning it downloaded the Mongoose modules. If I open it, notice that Mongoose is there. You see that? It wasn't there before. Okay. So it downloaded all the libraries that it needed from Mongoose. Make sense? All right. And we say that it's installed locally. It's installed only for this project, right? We could have instead added a -G here, right? Option for the installation, and that would have created Mongoose available globally to all projects, right? So that it would be seen from everywhere. I went with the local version. I don't know why it changes the color of my text. Screen text. I want white. Okay. All right. So we installed that. Very good. Let's go to the Mongoose documentation. Let's see. Okay. All right. So how do we connect to a database? There it is. It tells you right here how to do it. Right. You copy. You paste it in your code. Right. So we copy and paste it here. Basically, it says require means is the equivalent of include or import. Yes? It's the equivalent of saying, hey, there's a library, right? Import it or include it. Right? So what this is going to do is going to say it's going to go into my directory, my node modules directory, and this matches the name of my module. Right? And it's going to instantiate it, going to create an instance, an object, Mongoose. I can call it whatever I want. Okay? It's a local variable. And that variable, that object has many methods in there. One of the methods is to connect with the database. Okay? All right? With a particular connection string. Right? In the connection string, there's a very similar connection strings that we've seen with JDBC, MySQL, SQL Server, yes? Here, we connected to MongoDB. The IP address of the server that we want to connect, this could be 127.0.0.1, or, you know, if you're using MongoLab, MongoLab is a popular, you know, database as a service provider, and, you know, they would give you an IP address that you can connect to, and then the database you want to connect to. Okay? If we what database we connect to, if we go to Mongo, if we say, you know, show DBs, these are all the databases we can connect to, right? Or we can create a new one, a brand new one, right? And if it doesn't exist here, it'll create it. Okay. So let's connect to maybe a test. Right, so in test, if I say use test, and then I show collections, the only collections I have there are applications, cats, embedded, kittens, to-dos, trips, users, and whatnot, right? Let's create other collections in there, right? So I'm going to put test here, test. Right? Everybody okay with that? Okay. So that would connect me to the database. Let's keep looking at the database, at the documentation. Okay. Let's go to the Mongoose website. Mongoose. And here it is, right? So there it is. It's pretty much the same documentation, right? We require, we connect, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to start creating a model, right? Instead of creating just plain old JSON objects, right, which we could, right? We're going to create a model from Mongoose. It says, hey, Mongoose, I want to create a strongly typed data model, right? That I'm going to tell you that certain fields need to be strings, certain fields need to be dates, certain fields need to be numbers, and so on and so forth. Okay? So that when I create things in the database, I want you to validate against the schema, because MongoDB is not going to validate. MongoDB is going to let me put anything I want in there, right? But Mongoose, gives us again that ability of creating a schema and whatnot. Okay. So let's see what else we have here. Quick start Mongoose. Okay, so here's an example of creating a schema. Right? Creating a schema. So let's create a schema. We can say var. We can create a new schema. Let's see what do we want to build. Let's create an application that allows us to create forms in a web application, right? That people can fill out forms, right? A form building application. Okay, right? So let's create a form. So form schema. Right. So it's a mongoose schema, right? And here we're going to have all the fields of that form. We'll start with something simple. A form has a name, which is a string. Okay, so this is the closest we're going to be at being able to create a schema, as we understand it in our relational model, right? What we couldn't do in MongoDB, we could do it in code by using this Mongoose library. Everybody okay? All right. Okay, there it is. We have a form schema. Now we're going to create a model that will allow us to instantiate instances of a form. Okay. So let's create a model. Let's see. Here's a model. We're going to say var form. And we're going to say mongoose model form. And then we're going to give it the schema, right? The form schema. Now form is now the equivalent of our entity manager, right? It's the equivalent of our context in an entity framework. Okay. From here we can create, delete, find, do all sorts of things, right? Into a database, right? So for instance, we can create a brand new form. We can say here's form one. We can say new form, right? And we can provide a JSON representation of what we would insert into the database. Right? This is the equivalent of this JSON that we would insert into the database. But this JSON object that I'm going to give it is going to be validated against a schema. It better have a field called name, and that field better be a string. Okay. Right? So it's going to be validated. So I'm going to have the name, right? I don't know, a form. I don't know. I'll call it form one. Form one. Okay. So we have a new instance. And then we can save it. Right? We can save it. We can say form one, save, and save is equivalent. In the entity frame, in the entity manager, persist. Remember persist, right? This is the equivalent, right? Do an insert into a database. So let's run this. Let's run this little application, right? Let's run that. So where are we here, right? ls, and it's app.js. So we're going to do node again. First of all, if we go here in tests, right? Show collections, we see that forms is not here, right? The collection form is not here. We say node app.js, we run it. Okay, we go back here and we show the collections. There it is, forms. You see that? That was not there before, right? It was not there. We can do the same thing that we would normally do to see what's in there. We can say forms, and they find. There's our form, form one. There it is. You see that? Form one is there. Okay, right? Okay, we can create all sorts of forms. We can create another one. We can say form two. Form two. Let's run it again. Right? We can do a find again. There's two of them. There it is, form 1 and form 2. You see that? Okay. So every time we run this application, this app.js, it is creating a model, it's creating a schema, it's creating an instance, and then inserting it into a database. Make sense? Right? Right. We have the model. Obviously, we don't want to do it every time we run. Right? We would want to do it when people perhaps click on an insert or plus or add or save button, right? To respond to something from some interaction from the user, right? Okay. So let's do that. Right? Let's start providing some kind of interface, some user interface for this. Okay. So I'm going to put this in a function, inside of a function that I want to be able to execute from outside, right? That responds to some kind of event, right? The response to something that comes in from the outside. Yes? Right? So let's do that. All right, so to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to add another package, right? What we want to be able to do is what we have here, right? What we drew up here. We want somebody providing some kind of URL, right? Interacting with us. And that URL telling us a command to insert or delete or update or do something, right? Or do something with some data, right? So we want to expose the ability of creating a form. We want to expose it to a third party. Yes, all right. So let's do that. So what we're going to do here, we're gonna install another package, the Express package, right? Up to this point, we have seen the M and the N of the mean stack, okay? And we only just scratched the surface. Okay? We're only seeing inserts. Obviously, we can do updates, deletes. We can do find by a particular predicate. Okay? Actually, maybe we should do that first. Let's do that first. Let's comment this out for a second. Let's comment this out for a second. What we can do, for instance, is we say form, right? Remember, the form is kind of like our entry point, our context, right? Our entry point into the collection, into the equivalent of the collections in the database, right? We can say form find, right? Just like we would do in the database, right? We would say db.forms.find, right? Our equivalent here is form, right? And here. What we want with the difference here is that the way this works is that this find is an asynchronous call, right? It goes off and connects to a database, right, through a network, and says, "Hey, give me all the I want to find all the collections, all the documents for this schema, right, for this particular entity." Yes, and the database, when it's ready, it will do its query, and it'll notify us asynchronously that it's done, right? Yes, here is what you were looking for, okay? And the way it's going to notify us is through a function, right? So the function, we could put the function here, f, some kind of function, or we could embed the function right here. We're going to say function, right? Or we could say maybe, I don't know, display forms, all forms. Okay, so that's a function, and here's a function. We can say function display all forms. Okay, so that function is going to be called when the find is done. Right? It is very important to understand, right, that this is an asynchronous communication between Node.js connecting to the database server, right, and the database server responding asynchronously and notifying us through a callback. Yes, this function is the callback. It's going to call this function when it's ready, when it's done, when it has the data. All right, and the way it's going to give us the data is through the parameters, right? Through the function calling our function and passing us the data. Yes, right? It's going to pass us two arguments, two parameters. The first parameter is an error. Right? If something happened, something bad happened, right? I crashed, timed out, whatever, right? It's going to give us an error. If there is no error, it'll be null. Okay? And the second parameter is the actual data. Right? So here's the data, right? Which in this case is what? All the forms. all the forms. Okay, and we're going to say here, I'm going to do console.log forms. Okay, right? So let's run this again. There they are. It came back as an array. You see that? It's an array of those objects, right? And I can treat that array like I would any JavaScript JSON object, right? I could iterate over it, right? I could iterate over. I could say, for var I equals 0, I less than forms.length, right? I plus plus. I can iterate and display each form. So I can say, cout. I mean, that's wrong language. Console.log forms sub I, right? Dot name. Yes. And we run that again. There it is. Just form 1 and form 2. See that? Right. So I can treat it. Or I can have a form.find where I can give it a predicate, very much like we did from the command line, right? I only want the form whose name is form 1 or form 2. Yes, so I can say name. So this is a predicate, right? The filter. I only want that says the form 1, form 1. Okay, and then again, also this is also an asynchronous call, right? It's going to notify us, right, when it's done. So I'm going to say display all forms that meet that criteria. Okay, so let's do that. Let's run that. Oops. Oh, there's not from. Sorry, form. There it is. So it displays form 1 twice, right? The first one is because I did the first query, and form 1 is because I did the second query. Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? All right. If I know that indeed there's only one form, right? There's an equivalent query that allows us to find one, meaning I know there's only one, right? And I can give it the name form 1. Right, and it says what this returns, since it's only one, it's not going to return an array. It's going to return just that one element. Okay, if it matches more than one, it'll just return the first one that matches. Okay, right. So this will not be display all forms. This will be display form, display one form. Okay, so this will be a separate function. Right, separate function. So I could create a separate function like this, function display one form, right? Do the same thing here, right? Or what you'll see a lot, right, in many of these examples is that they embed the function right here, right, within here. Some people find this disturbing, of having these functions embedded, but if you're going to do any JavaScript coding, you have to start getting used to this syntax, right? That functions are treated just like objects, right? It's and first citizen, you can pass functions as arguments just like you pass any variable. So anyway, so here's the function, no name, right? So it's often referred to as an anonymous function. It doesn't have a name as opposed to this one, right? This has a name, right? This one doesn't have a name, and it has the same parameters. The error is the first one, the error, and the second one is the actual data. Notice that I'm calling a form, not forms, right? Because it's only going to be one of them, right? Here's a bracket, a curly bracket, and here's a closing. Notice this closing closes with this one over here. Right? Careful, right? And here's the body of the function. So this syntax you'll see very, very often. If you do any jQuery or any JavaScript development, you should be familiar with this curly bracket parentheses. And sometimes you have all these nestings of functions which are really hard to read, and you have all these parentheses and curly brackets everywhere, and it's hard to follow around, right? Anyway, definitely this is much easier to read, right, and much more reusable. But anyway, I wanted to show you this syntax, which is very, very common. Anyway, so here we're going to do a console.log. We're going to display the form, that one form. Yes? Okay, so let's run that. There it is. That form one just display it. There it is. See that? And there's the ID. I could also query it by ID. Right? So I could have instead of the name. Let me just leave that there. We can do form.find1 by ID, right, and give it the ID. Same thing, function. Display one. That function here would be function display one, and this would be form. It does see how we're doing C++ to log. Sorry, the log form. There it is. So let's. So now if I run it again, so it should be the same thing, right? No. ID form one. Why not ID? Wasn't that the ID? That was the ID, isn't it? Right? Form.find ID display one form. Is there a find by ID? Find, quick start, division, API. Find by ID. There it is. Find by ID. Find by ID. That's what I give it, no? Oh, find by ID. Let's try that. Find by ID, and it takes the ID first. That's the ID, and then a function call. All right, let's try that. Signature. Oh, I know what's happening. Yes, I'm sorry. I hate computers. They're always right. They take things so literally. They do exactly what they're told. There it is, right? So it's retrieved it. I bet the other one also worked as well. Okay, but this one specifically takes the ID as opposed to this one being more generic, right? And one of the fields in there is underscore ID. Typically, if you see a field with an underscore in front of it, is an ID is a field that is managed by MongoDB itself. Okay. Notice that at no moment did we tell it that we wanted a primary key, but it went in any way created a primary key for us, right? And it's choosing its own unique identifier for that record, for that document. Although we can override that and says no, we want to manage the ID ourselves as opposed to MongoDB, and we can provide our own values for that ID. And then obviously we would be responsible for making those unique. Okay? All right. All right. So once we find one, once we have a form, for instance, we can now update that form. We can say form dot. I want to change it. Maybe we want to change the name, right? We want to say form dot that name, right? It's an object, right? And any modifications we make to it, right? We're going to say maybe form 123, right? And then we can save it back to the database. We can say form.save, right? So any modifications we do, we can save it. So it's so this display it not only displays it but it also modifies it. So let's see. Let's look at the forms first from the console. Fine, we have form 1 and form 2. We can do a pretty. There they are, right? Form 1 and form 2. We're going to change the name of form 1 to form 123. Okay. We're going to do it inside of a display. Right? Once we receive the object, we can manipulate it. This is very similar to JPA, right? Once we receive something from the database, right, we can manipulate it. It's a managed object, right? Any modifications are done to its properties. Yes, it's being tracked, right, by the internal framework, right? And then when we do a persist or an update or merge, right, an update is done to the database, right? So same thing here. Right? So let's run that. So it finds it, it displays it. Let's see if we do a pretty again. There it is. It changed it to form 123. Okay. Or we can do a delete, right? Instead of doing this, we can do form dot remove or delete. I think it's remove, and then if you say remove and don't give any attributes, right? No filter, it's going to do similar to delete with no in relational database, right? If you don't give it a predicate, it's going to remove all the records, right? So here we can say I want to remove only the one that has name form 2. Or by ID, right? You can give it an ID and removes it. Okay. You can have a function call with an error and the count, meaning how many records, how many documents were affected. How many actual records, documents were actually removed. Okay. Okay. And so here we can say console.log count. And so we can run this. 1 comes back with 1, so presumably there was 1 document that was removed. So if we do a find, notice that form 1 is no longer there. Okay. So anyway, so we could do inserts, right? We can do updates, we can do removes, we can do finds, find 1, find many, right? So yeah, so it has its own API, obviously, yes. But to make it more interesting, what we really want to do here is that once we have this data model, we have the database model, right? That's being stored. We can access it programmatically here from Node.js, but really the power is when you make this available to anybody outside, right? When you expose your data model, right, to the outside world, right? That somebody using URLs, using commands, events, through some UI, they can come in and interact with your database remotely. That's really where the power of this is. Okay, so let's do that. All right. Okay. Before we do that, let's move. Well, not yet. Not just yet. Not just yet. Let's see. Okay. All right. So we want to be able to do is what we want to be able to receives commands from incoming URLs. Yes? So basically we need a server. We need an HTTP server, like Tomcat or something like that. Yes? But instead of using Tomcat, we're going to use a library here that very easily you can create web services. Right? I mean, it was pretty simple using Java. Right? You would create a class, you would create methods, right? And then you had to configure Jersey, right, as a servlet, and then annotate those classes and map them to the correct URLs. Yes, right. So we're going to use a library here that is similar, but I would say is much simpler than Java's JWS or C#'s Web API. Okay. All right. So the library is called Express. Right. So let's download Express. Let's install Express. Remember when we installed Mongoose, right? And we did save. What that did is that if we look at the package now, notice that it added a dependency entry. You see that? Dependencies. It says that this program, this application you're building, depends on Mongoose version 3.8.20. Okay. So that if anybody wants to use my application with when I post this in GitHub, right? I don't want to, for instance, I don't want to have to also include the libraries, right? Because the libraries, they're very, there's quite a bit of stuff here, right? It's freely available. Why would I replicate this again? Yes, right. So but with the package JSON, right? which package JSON, you could just blow, I could just blow this away. I could blow it away. Look at this, 3 megabytes, right? We don't want to have to replicate this. Notice it's gone, yes? And these are the only things you need. These are the only things you need. You would from your command line, you would do something like npm install. Right? So npm install is going to read package.json. It's going to read package.json. It's going to say, oh, you need Mongoose, right? It's going to go and download, right, all the packages that are needed, and notice that it recreates the node underscore module. See that? Right, that's what package.json does for me. I can redistribute this without the libraries, and somebody can reinstall and reinstantiate all the libraries that it needs. Make sense? Right? All right. And it always, npm always changes my screen text color. All right, so we don't need another package. We need Express. Let's go look at the page for Express. Right, so let's go for Express JS. There it is. So to get started, there it is. That's a command that we're going to use to install Express. Right, npm install Express save. I'm going to copy that. Go to our command. I'm going to paste it here. Right, it's going to do that, and it's going to go and make an entry into my package.json file, saying that yes, I install Express a particular version. Right, and again, it changed my color. All right. If I look at my package now, notice that it has 2 dependencies. You see that? It has the Mongoose dependency that was there, right? And now it has the Express dependency. See that? So again, this allows me to reinstall all my libraries later on. Notice that if I go into my modules directory, we now have not only Mongoose, we all now have Express as well. Okay? Make sense? All right. All right. What do we do with Express? Right. The claim to fame of Express is that it allows you to instantiate and run a server with just 2 or 3 lines of code. Right. 3 lines of code. Boom, you have a server, an HTTP server, listening for incoming HTTP requests. Right. Very, very powerful. Very easy to use. Very, very lightweight. So let's see how to do this. Let's get started. All right. So we have the guide. There it is, API reference. There it is. We're going to require Express. We're going to instantiate Express and listen for a particular URL. Right? And then listen to a particular port. That's it. All right, so let's do that. Let's copy that. Let's go into our code. All right, let's put it at the top. There it is, Express. Then I'm going to listen for incoming HTTP with this URL. That means slash. Right? That means nothing. Right? So if somebody goes to localhost port 300, they're going to see hello world. Right? They're going to send back. Right? Here's the request and response. This object request represents the request that is incoming, including any query parameters, the actual URL, the domain, the IP address where the query is coming from. This object request represents the HTTP request that is coming to us. Yes? And response represents what data are we going to send back. It could be a file, or it could be hard-coded text. It could be JSON. It could be whatever we want. All right? So let's copy this over here. And we're going to paste it way down here. Okay? All right. Now over here we have this remove. Really all this code, we don't need it. We don't need any of this. We're going to do this all over again. Remove, display. We don't need any of that. Okay, so the only thing we have here is what? We included the Express package. We instantiated it, right? And we have the Mongoose connection we talked about already. We have the data model. We have the data model, right? And we have the get. Correct? All right. And we're going to just say hello world. Let's do that. Let's run. No. Wait. Node app. There it is. Node app. Okay. So presumably the server is running. The server is running. Okay. You know, you thought Tomcat was fast at starting up, right? Lightweight. Well, this is much more lightweight, right? It's lightning fast. Starts up, and it's listening already at 3,000, right? I hit that, and there it is. It says hello world, right? So whatever I have here, right? Change this, right? To make sure to convince you that indeed it's running that. Let's run it again, and let's refresh. There it is, right? So whatever I type there comes back, right? So let's see. I can not just send text. I can also send JSON. I can say response send JSON message hello world. Just send JSON. No consumer, no producer, no annotations, no nothing, right? Right. I'm listening over here. If I refresh, it comes back as JSON. Right. It uses the correct MIME type, right? The correct headers automatically, right? And the browser is receiving as JSON. Okay. What else could we do? Well, hey, what about those forms? How many forms do we have? Oh, just one form, right? Let's get that one form, right? How do we do that? We say form. That find, was it? Find. Okay. And what did find do? It had a function, right, that retrieved it, an error, and then it returns all the forms, didn't it? Isn't that what it did? Right? Well, what could we do? Well, could we do this? We just say, send that as a response. Send the forms as a response. The forms you got from the database, send that back. Okay. So let me restart the server. If I go here and refresh, look at that. I have the array of forms. Okay. And so here, what I've done, right, I have exposed, right, the data access from anybody who has this URL. Anybody who has my IP address and the port, right, can read my data, right? They don't need to be using the Mongo client, right, or be running at my local desktop, right? They have access to my data. See that, right? All right. Some design. Let's change this design just a little bit. One of the things that we want this to be a RESTful service. Yes, and one of the resource state transfer, a representational state transfer, right, service, right, that we're going to name these as resources that are out there available, right, and that we're going to give them, we'll call them forms, right? This is what they are, okay? So if you ask for forms, I will return all the forms. If you don't tell me exactly which form, I'll return all of them. Right? This is exactly what I'm doing. I'm finding all my forms, and I'm returning all the forms. Correct? Right? So let's run that again. So now, if I go here and I refresh, it's going to complain. There is no slash. Nothing is mapped to slash. Okay? But I know there's something mapped to forms because I just created it, didn't I? So say forms, it returns the array of forms. Correct? Okay. Or if I want to retrieve a particular form, I can have the same thing over here. I can copy this and provide the ID as an argument, right? I can say that the ID is out here, right? So notice that this is a placeholder, right? It could be anything, right? And I can retrieve it as a parameter in the request as a parameter. I can say var, the ID is the request.params.id, right? Where this matches that. It's like a map. It's just like a map. ID, like a map. You know, like you would in .NET, you would say request, you know, square brackets and the quotation. Yes, very similar here. Yes, but it's inside of params, right? But in JavaScript, this notation, this map notation, is equivalent to the object notation. Right? These are equivalent, which is, I think, it's pretty cool that you can jump around between the two different representations. It's nice. Anyway, so I have my ID. I know there's only one, right, so I can do find by ID, right, and I can give it the ID. So this is the ID, and it's not form. There's only one form. There's only one form, and I'm going to return that form. Yes. Okay. So let's start. Let's start this again. All right, so now I come back, and if I go to forms, these are all the forms. But if I know the ID, I can ask for that one. Notice that there's an array. Yes? But now, so this one is executing which one? It's executing this one, right? It's that one. It's mapped to that one. Now I'm going to give it an ID, so it's going to execute this one. Yes? So I'm going to give it an ID here. Now it returns not an array, but it returns to just that one object. That makes sense? All right. All right, so we can get one, we can get many. What about, you know, I want to create a brand new one, I want to update. There are many APIs out there that say they're RESTful, but they're not really. Okay. Basically, what they do is that all their queries accept just GET. Okay. They all GET, and for instance, if they want to create a new one, what they might do is they'll create something like this. They'll say get, right, and they say forms create, right, and then the form name perhaps, right, the name of the form. Okay, that's not really RESTful. Okay, but for now, let's do this for now. Okay, and then we'll fix it. We'll fix it and make it RESTful. But just to show you, here we're going to create a brand new instance, right? We're going to say var new form equal new form with name colon we're gonna parse this out, right? We're gonna parse this out. That's from the request params sub name. Yes, and then we're gonna save it. Say new form dot save. Correct? Right. So let's restart the server. Really, for that query, what we should do is really receive posts, right? But we're not ready to do that just yet. We can't do that just yet. So let's create a form. So let's say create / form 321. Oh, we didn't have a response. We don't have a response. So notice that the browser is kind of waiting for the response, which we'll never receive. So I'm going to stop the server. My bad. So we might want to do here is respond with the form we just created. Okay, so we might do function error form, the brand new form we just created, and basically do a response.json, right? The form we just created. Okay, so let's do that. Try it again. So let's create another one. 432. There it is. So it responded with the form that was just created, that was just saved. I can look at all the forms if I go to this URL. Yeah, there they are, all the forms we just created. 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. Those are the ones we just created, right? If I want one of them, I can provide the ID. That's it. Okay. All right. So we're kind of getting out of the non-RESTful, right? This is really not RESTful, right? And so let's do it right. Let's do it right. Really, we need to do posts. That's really what we need to do, right? So actually, this is getting pretty crowded, right? Pretty crowded. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in a separate package, right? In a separate JS file, right? That is going to deal with forms. Okay, just before we might have other things, right? But let's move this into a separate file. I'm going to copy this whole thing. Copy it, and I'm just going to copy it here. Okay, I'm going to copy it in a separate file. I'm going to export this so that I can load it so I can import it from my app.js. Yes, right? Very much like you would do in C++ with headers or libraries, separate classes, and then you would import from Java. Right? Same thing here. The mechanism in Node.js is through modules. Modules export. Okay, and you provide a function. Right? This is kind of like a constructor. It's going to instantiate this and make it accessible from outside. Right? So in here, I'm going to wrap this whole thing with this function. Right? And I'm going to. So this function, when it gets instantiated, it's going to create a schema, a model, and all these listeners. Right? All these events. Right? For this to work, it needs mongoose as an argument and app as an argument. Right? Which we're going to pass as arguments. Yes? So we're going to pass mongoose as an argument, and we're going to pass the app as an argument. Okay? And we're going to save it into forms.js. Yes? This is kind of like our DAO, our data model. Well, no, because this is kind of like a service, right? This is a service data model kind of mixture between the two. Typically, you would have a separate in two different files. One is the model, right? And a separate file would be the service. Yes, we kind of have it in one single file, right? But I don't want to get too much into architectural, jargons here, right? At least we moved it out from our app.js. Okay? Anyway, so we have our app, we have our mongoose. We're gonna now load our forms. Yes, we'll load the forms, which we just spit it out. We're gonna say var. Forms is equal to require, and it's located in forms.js, right here, and we're going to pass mongoose, and we're going to pass app. Okay, right. All right, so let's try it again. Let's see if we broke anything. Let's see if we broke it. Oops, we did break it. Modules. Did I misspell it? Is it module? Singular. Okay, thank you. Oops. Forms. Am I missing something? Let's see. Maybe I got my my modules, Node.js module exports. Modules, blah blah blah. Modules exports. Did I do it plural? Exports. Okay. It's exports. What else? What else did I do wrong? Blah blah blah. Did I do require correct? Require. I think that's all right. Let's try it again. Okay, looks like it worked. Let's see. Let's come back here. Let's reload this. Okay, still working, right? Still works. Forms. This loads all the forms. So it's still working. I just moved it out because it was getting crowded. Okay, it's getting crowded. Also, the express that we loaded is not yet ready to support post. Okay. I mean, yes, it supports post, right? You can listen in for post, but one of the things that we need to do is, for instance, pass data in the post, right? We need to pass the new form that we want to create, yes? And usually that new data of the form that we're passing as an argument will be encoded as JSON inside of the body of the message, of the HTTP message that is being provided to the Express library, yes? So by default, Express is not ready to parse that body. Okay. Also, it's not ready to receive multi-parts submission from forms that we might be submitting from our UI. Yes, by default, it's not configured to do that. To do that, we need to load a couple more libraries, all right, so that it can parse the body of the HTTP. If you go to Express and we look at we search for body parser. Body parser, there it is, body parser. These are the two libraries that we're going to need: the body parser and the multi-part form parser. Okay, so let's include these two. All right, let's load those. We're going to say npm install body parser save. And save that. So include that. Right? Oh, I changed the color again. npm install and I think it's multer, another package, and save as well. Let's install those two. Okay, there they are. Right? Let me change the color again. Sorry. The color. Is it okay if we don't do a break? We continue, or are you fried? Do we need a break? We do? Okay. All right, let's do a quick break. Oh, what happened to my colors? Oh no. Oh, screen text white and screen background black. All right, let's do a quick break, and then we'll continue. We'll add post and creations and finding and things like that to the UI. All right. Seattle, we're gonna break for a couple minutes. How you all doing over there? I hope that's positive. All right. Okay, we'll be back in about 5-10 minutes. Yes.
You only teach us how to get the data from the database. I mean, input the data into the database.
Yep.
But you didn't teach us how to get data from the database and then, to put it into the HTML file.
Yeah. Well, that's what you're doing here, right? Produces. There it is.
Yeah. Actually, so that's two separate questions. The one is the user contain a field called a file description. So if I write two functions here, one is
yeah, you can't return string. It needs to be an object.
So
if you say you're returning application JSON, it has to be an object.
Actually, it's a producer. It's Oh, so I need to use the consume.
No. Just like this. See here, you're returning a user.
Yeah.
That's an object, right? That contains many primitive data types like integer, string, blah blah blah.
Yeah. So if it is an object, how can I get the actual field in the JSP? I mean.
Yeah. So once you're in JSP, you need to be able to parse that JSON and display it in
Can you give me
JSON.
a sample?
Yeah. So where's your Ajax? Do you have your Ajax?
Yeah. Yes. Ajax is here.
Okay. No, that's not Ajax.
Oh, it's this JSP. There it is. Yeah.
Okay, there it is. Okay, yeah. So what you do is, so you're getting the response, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does this work? Does it get the response?
Yes, but it pulling out an object.
In the console?
Yeah. No.
Can you show it to me? Running?
Yes.
Sorry.
Actually. Why?
No, none of an applet. Yeah, server. Actually, today I'm going to show you how to, if you get a JSON, I'm going to show you how to display it.
Oh.
Although we did do this before, right?
to change the content of the here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a second. Wait. Okay. Where's
I changed the code, but actually, if I do the return, it shows here something like the object.
Okay. So is this
Here,
Safari?
no, it's here,
Is this Safari?
just here. See, I use JSON to get the data, and then I want to change the content of the HTML, and then show out to be the
Okay.
object.
All right. So where is this being done? Show me. Where's your code that does that? I think because you told it to run as an applet. I don't know. Okay. Where are you doing that?
Here, get at first I get element by ID, and then change the inner HTML.
Okay. No. All right. So if you want to do it that way, it would be like this. Not here.
Actually, this Ajax is the return value of this Ajax is a string. I don't see it very well.
So
Because I call I set the URL as API is which will return the string.
can you refresh this?
Yes.
Is it journal photography?
No, this is not the one.
Where is it?
Just here, but it doesn't show anything. It should be like here.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's the message typing message. It's Chinese now. This is it.
Yeah, that.
Oh, actually, this one return the string, so will it work?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. It's not running.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an error. It's going back to an error right here. So if you go to, where are you generating here?
You mean the Dell?
Yeah, is it?
No, not this one.
Okay. So is this the one that's returning data?
Yes.
User. Okay, so let's. And what do you want to return?
I want to return
Get description. Right. So what you should do is return user, and user includes the description.
So maybe you can just call this one.
Okay, but all right, then this is user.
Yeah, only the user name, not description.
Okay, so where is that? Is it here?
Yeah.
So how do I go there? API, just username?
Yeah, just
without the API?
With some description. API is the root.
Like that? Yeah, is it a get text? Oh, so it's this one, right?
No, this one. This one should be good because I just copied it from the this function is totally right.
Has this ever happened? Worked? Sorry.
I didn't try because I don't know how to
Error.
use an object to get exact.
Do you have Chrome?
Yes. Yep.
What does that say?
It means the element.
Okay, good. That's too many. I'm looking for this one. This username API.
This one shows API. Yeah, again, movie API.
Then, oh, there it is. Yeah. What does it say? Over. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's right.
What does it say? Not found. So it doesn't find this. It doesn't find this. Where is user DAO here?
User DAO.
Yeah, where's it here? User DAO, okay. And where's your XML? Jersey Power Packages. Where's the XML?
Which XML? You mean the web XML?
Yeah.
So that's what.
And it's mapped to API.
Yeah.
API, so two APIs? Yeah.
I think this is wow.
Dang, there it is.
No, but the URL is incorrect. This what should be the original the movie project. Movie project.
Dang, okay, 4. Okay, this is not found. API, oh wait, API. No, wait, no, what's the name? Where's that? API, and then slash username?
It's the input.
Slash username, so API. Yeah, it should be that.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
Wait a minute. It should be API slash. Get 200, okay, see? Yeah, everything. So that's correct. Why is it not? Oh, yeah, so you need to do a project in front of it. No. Is that it?
Which one?
Yeah. So you need project API. Yeah. Go back. There it is. You have the data.
Oh.
Okay, now you have the data. There's the data.
So if I want to get the specific thing,
right. So what do you want? What do you want to show?
the description.
What is the description? This one?
Yeah, this one.
Okay, then it will be response.
Oh.
Is it called description?
Let me see. Oh, yeah, it should be description. You can check the database.
Wait a minute. Password, email. Description. Should be correct. That's weird. But anyway, that's not the way it should be done anyway. So, where's ID? It's this one. Is it called introduction? Really, the way it should be done is like this. First. Really? What? It must not be description then. Descript. Am I spelling it correctly? Yeah. Description. Oh, you know what's happening? It's a string. It's coming back as a string, probably. Yeah. Okay, all right, fine. So it needs to be converted to a JSON first. So var the JSON value. So we can just say response equal JSON.parse response. Yeah, I'm a big fan. There we go.
Thank you.
All right, I need to go to the restroom, and then we have to continue. Maybe. Yeah. No, let's say GitHub. GitHub, right? Yep.
Okay. Yeah, basically we had some doubts, but can we meet like
We'll hang out.
hang out?
Yes.
Okay. just.
We can hang out tomorrow.
Okay, I can just send you an email for that so that we can just.
No, you can send a Google Hangout invitation.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I'm just curious because many would have, if there's a clash,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Or we can schedule through Google Hangout. We can schedule.
Okay.
It's at noon or right after the evening.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. All right. Let's continue. I guess before I keep going, let's see. Wait a minute. Let me make sure Seattle is there. Seattle, everybody there? We're gonna start going. We're gonna get going. Sounds like robots. What? Scott, do I sound like a robot? Oh, there's a background noise. Okay, sorry. All right, let's get going. But first of all, are you finding this useful, interesting? It's there's one of the more exciting technologies that are up and coming, and I thought this would be useful to at least get your feet wet and get a feeling of what it is, what it's all about. Obviously, we're not going to become experts today. But ideally, you'd be excited about it, and you would go out and just try and replicate this, and take this much beyond what we do today. Obviously, I'd like to spark that interest in you, and certainly if you get a chance to play around, in one of these projects, it's definitely look amazing in your resume. Okay. All right. So where were we? Right. We had just install these two libraries so that we can have Express, right, be able to parse the body and extract JSON from the HTTP calls. Yes? And so we're going to require those two right after we do Express. And so here's Express. Let's there it is. I have body parser and multer. I have my requires right before this. Very good. What else? We need to configure the body parser and say, yes, I want to be able to parse JSON. I want to be able to encode and decode things from the URL. I like to be able to parse the body and whatnot. Okay. And here's a little test that they have to see that if it's working or not, like an echo, right? If you post something, I'll echo whatever you sent me. Yes? All right. Okay. So I'm going to add that. Express. And then add it. There we go. What else? What else do we need? What else do we need? We need to be able to post to this, right? The only other thing that we need to do is, if we're going to use HTML, this server right now doesn't know how to serve pages, right? It only knows how to serve data. That's all it knows how to serve, right? So again, by default, it doesn't know how to serve any pages. So we need to configure it so that it can serve, CSS, JavaScript, all sorts of pages. Yes. So to do that, we need to tell it, hey, I want you to be able to serve not only dynamic data from a database. I want you to host static HTML, static CSS, static JavaScript. Right. For that, let's see if we look for static. Public. There it is. Wait. Public. There it is. This is what configures it to be able to host anything that any file, any text file that I drop in a directory called public will be served up as is. Yes. So if there's an HTML document in there, or CSS, or whatever, text files will be hosted. Will be sent over verbatim. So let's add that as well. use Express, and we'll add that right here. Okay. Let's try this out now. Let's create our public directory. Let's create a public directory. New public. In there, we'll put an index file. And in that index file, we're going to say hello world. Static HTML. Okay. And let's restart our server. npm, there it is, node. Let's start it. And let's hit our server. And before, remember, slash was not mapped to anything, right? But now it's mapped to index.html, right? That's the default. If there's nothing, it's as if you were asking for index.html, right? There it is. That's the document I just put in there. Everybody okay? Everybody still with me? All right. So we want to send a query, a post, back to the server from our client, right? So presumably somebody's interacting with the API, with the UI, and it's posting the form, right? We want to capture that data and send it to the server to create new forms, delete forms, update forms, all sorts of things with forms. Yes? Okay. We could do it with all sorts of JavaScript libraries. You could do it from jQuery. I see that some of you are using jQuery. That's fine. We could do that. Or we could do it with Angular. Right. That's another JavaScript library. It's another framework. It's a model view controller MVC framework, JavaScript framework. We could do either one. Typically, in this stack, where you're using Node, Mongo, you're using Express, we use the A, Angular, right? Although we could use jQuery as well, right? Any particular preference? Any particular preference from the audience? Typically, it would be Angular. Is it okay if we use Angular? All right, let's use Angular. We'll need Angular. We'll download Angular. We'll go Angular.js, and we're going to download this is a JavaScript library, meaning this runs on the client, right, on the browser as a JavaScript framework. Even though it's JavaScript, this one is not running on the server like Node.js, right, and app.js. Yes, this is running on the client. I'm going to download. I'm going to save it in CS5200 public. I'll create a directory called JS, and I'll drop it in there. Angular.js. There it is. Okay. And in my index page, I'm going to load that JavaScript library. I'm going to load it. I'm going to say script source. I'll do the JS directory, right? And it's called Angular.js. Okay? So now it's loaded. And we're going to create a little div here. That's going to be the container of my application. And I'm going to say that this is an Angular application. I'm not going to give it a name. We're not going to do Angular modules and whatnot, just the bare bones, right? The absolute bare bones Angular.js application. Also, I'm going to have the controller this is going to be the view in an MVC, right? This is going to be the view, which is going to be controlled by a controller. I'm going to say that the controller responsible for manipulating this view, okay, is going to be the form controller. Form controller. Meaning this thing is going to be responsible for manipulating whatever's inside of this div. Okay? And the way we define the controls, again, We're not using modules or things like that, which in a larger application we would. This is a very bare bones application, so forgive me for doing shortcuts. This is the absolute bare minimum that you need for this to work. There it is, function controller. And let's see if this works. So we'll say alert hello from Angular. All right. So let's see. Let's rerun our. Oh, there it is. Hello from Angular. So Angular is running. Angular found that controller, says, okay, this controller is responsible for this view. Whatever the controller tells the view to render, the view will render. Okay. And the way that the controller talks to the view, is through some templating. Just like in JSPs, you have pointy brackets, %, yes? In Angular, although in JSPs, those pointy brackets, %, those are server side, right? The server is generating that content. Over here, same thing, same idea, templating, but these templates are being rendered on the client by the browser, right? So here, if I have here hello, right? So this instead of pointy brackets %, it's curly brackets. Right? So from the controller, to be able to talk to the view, we use what it's called the scope. The scope is an object that represents whatever's inside of the view, right? Any variables, right? Any objects that live in the view, like this one is a variable, that lives in the view, are accessible to the controller through the scope. That is very similar to JSP. It has some magical objects. JSP has some magical objects like request, session, page. Those are all magical objects, right? Somebody instantiates them, right? And somehow they're available to you at the page level. Yes? Same thing here. This is a magical object. This is using a technology called injection. Basically, somebody instantiates, the framework instantiates this object, and then it sends it to you through the method. Anyway, so from here, I can manipulate the UI by saying scope, dot hello, right? That same variable is accessible through the scope. I can say, hello from Angular. So this hello will be replaced by whatever the control says, right? So let's refresh that, and it says hello from Angular. Make sense? Everybody okay? All right. All right. So guess what? There are other things that I can do here, right? If I have arrays, I can have arrays. I can have an array here, var data, name 1, and then maybe a value. Wait, why am I creating arrays here? Don't we have arrays already coming from URLs? Yeah, don't we have that? Let's go get those arrays, right? Don't we have URLs that do that? I forget what they look like. What they look like. Do you remember? It was something like forms. Yeah, that's an array. Let's use that array. Let's not do this, right? Let's get that array, right? To do that, we need another magical object, HTTP. HTTP allows us to send AJAX requests, right? So let's do that. Let's get a hold of that. I'm going to say send an HTTP GET request to the URL, that URL, right? And when you're done, when the request is done and it has data, notify me. Notify me. Now, if this is successful, notify me and pass me the data to me, right? Through this function. Here's the response. response. And what could we do? We could send it to the UI. We can say scope.hello equal response. Okay. So if we go back and we refresh this, there it is. That's the array. That's the array that's coming from the server, right? But now we have it in the UI, right? We just need to render it nicely, pretty. Okay. So let's render it pretty. So instead of hello, what I might want to do is maybe have this as a UL. Maybe I want to render it as a UL, right? And maybe use maybe line items, right? And maybe in here have the data. What data do we have? We have the ID, we have the name, we have this weird thing. Maybe just a name. How about just a name, right? So we want the name in here. So let's do a span, and we want the name in here. We want the data in here. Okay? And we kind of want as many forms as they are. We want all these LIs, right? Line item, copied and pasted many, many times, as many as there are. So we kind of like a repeater. We're going to put this in some kind of loop, right? We're going to iterate over this array over here, right? So instead of this response, really, what are we getting? These are forms, aren't we? Right, so let's give it names here. Forms, forms, forms. So I'm sending this array to the UI, and I'm binding it to some variable called forms in the UI. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to use that forms. I'm going to iterate over that. I'm going to repeat. I want to repeat this over and over as many forms as there are, basically, yes? So let's do that. We're going to do ng repeat. So repeat for every form in forms, where forms is this variable here, that variable there, right? Now, this could be response, whatever. But I am binding it to this variable in the UI, right, which is called forms, and this is forms. And this ng repeat is going to iterate and copy and paste this over and over for every form inside of forms. Okay? Right? I'm just going to do that. I'm going to repeat this. 3 bullets, because there are 3 forms. Right? But there's a whole bunch of empty spans in there. I didn't render anything. But I have form. Form is an object that is different for every repetition, yes? For every loop. So in here I could say form, and then whatever's in there. What do we have? A name, we have an ID, we have a whole bunch of things in there. I only want the name. Okay? So I repeat there, and there they are. There's the forms. Okay? Everybody okay? All right. I might want other things. I might want also the ID, so I could put here the underscore ID. There they are, the ID and the form. Maybe a better representation for this would be tables. So let's put tables here, right? And use table rows for the LIs, and use table data for the spans. Okay. There that. So it's in tabular format, right? Which is pretty ugly. It's very ugly table data. But we could quickly make it pretty if we use a CSS library, right? So let's say I think I have a library hanging out somewhere here. A Bootstrap is a nice one, right? So if we go to Bootstrap and we go to CSS and we just copy all this and we drop it in the public. Where was it? Public. And if we create a CSS directory here, and we drop it in there, right? In our index, right? We could load that library, that Bootstrap library, link href. It's in CSS bootstrap.css. Rel. It's a style sheet. Style sheet. If I go back and I render it, at least the font is a little prettier, right? I could paint this a little better and give cells that this is a container. right? So that it just adds a little bit of padding on the sides. Also, if I paint this table, it looks a little prettier, right? It doesn't look as lame as it was before. We're okay? Right. Anyway, let's go back to what we were trying to do post, right? So we need a form. We need a form. So let's create a form. Let's create a form. Let's create here a table row where we can put a form, table data. Let's create an input field, input, and this is going to be representing what? It's going to represent placeholder, represents the name of the form, right? Name of the form. Table data. And we need like a button or something, right? So let's do TD button, and we want it to say like add, right? TD. So let's refresh that. Oh no, that looks ugly. So we have the ID, we have that. So this should be like on top of this, right? So let's add another TD here, empty. Oh, not breaking space. We're going to just shift it over one. Yeah, so the name above the name, right, of the forms, and then this add here. Ooh, I mistyped this. Oh, there they are. Add, that input field looks ugly. So let me paint it as a class form control. Form control class. Is it not form control? Really? Input form control. Why is it not painting it? Class form control. Is it? Did I misspell it? Bootstrap form control. Form control. Yeah. I didn't misspell it. Form control. That's weird. What about the button? Can I paint that? Button. Okay, that worked. Why is it painting this one but not that one? That's weird. Button primary. Is that primary? The blue? Yeah, so that's working. Not sure what's not working here. I must have misspelled something. Anyway, whatever. It's only CSS, right? Only look and feel. Anyway, so what I want to be able to do is if I click on the button, I want to tell the controller, hey, they clicked on the button. They want to add this new form. Yes. Okay. So the way we do that is we say ng click add. So meaning, call, invoke a function add in the controller. So let's go in the controller and declare that add. I'm going to say scope add, meaning this is a function that was declared in the UI. I'm just giving it a function. Right? I'm going to say alert. Right? I'm going to say adding form. Let's refresh that. So if I click on add, it comes up with adding form. Right? So that function is being called. What do we need? We need this name over here, right? We need the name. So let's grab the name. To grab the name, I need to give that input field a name. I have to give it a name. I have to bind it to a variable. And the way we do that is it says ng model. It's part of a model. So this is a form name. Form name, right? And I'm going to grab it here. I'm going to say, okay, the form name. I can print it here. $scope.form.name. So if I refresh and I type and do add, there it is, form, and then whatever I typed. Okay. Right. So I have an object. Actually, if I do a console log form, just form. If I look at the console, so if I say form EWQ, oops, form, oh, the scope.form, sorry. Form 321 add, there's the object, there it is, with name form. Right? So the only thing I need to do is send this to the server. Hey, server, they want to create this new form. Right? So let's do that. And we already know how to send something to the server, like this get, right? Very similarly, we want to say $HTTP.post. Remember, for creating we use post, for updating we use put, for deleting we use delete, right? For reading we use get, right? We already know how to do get, right? So let's post data. We want to say something like http://3000/forms, right? Meaning forms. I'm not telling you any particular form because this form doesn't exist, right? I'm telling you what collection I'm adding it to, and I'm telling you the new data. The data is scope form. I'm passing you the data. Okay, and if everything goes fine, respond to me, right, successfully, and I will print it out to the console. Console log response. Okay. Meaning, on the server side, we need to listen for a post. Yes? Let's go to the server. Forms, there it is, right? We have no post. Nobody's listening here for a post, is it? Nobody, right? So let's create something that listens for a post. So this one is going to listen for a post for the URL forms. Right? And the data that I pass, that I am passing, is going to be in the body of the HTTP request. Right? So it's going to be in here, in the request.body. Request.body, right? So I'm going to console log whatever I'm passing to the server. Okay, where's that going to print? That's on the server, not on the client. Right? This console.log is different than this console.log. Yes? This console.log prints in the browser's console. This console.log prints at the server in the desktop. Yes? Right? So let's do that. Let's restart the server. And I'm going to have it on the right-hand side over here, and I'm going to have the client on this side over here, right? I'm going to refresh this. Why is it so big? Something's wrong. This should be responsive. Huh. Okay. Anyway, so this is form. I'm going to say form ABC add. There it is, right? The server is receiving the data, yes, and the client, right? So this console is this console, right? Because that's what it's doing, right? It's saying forms post blah 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 blah, and it receives a success saying, I'm sorry, this is the console. This console. This success, we never received it because we never responded. We never responded. We could respond, right? We could respond. We can say, we can just echo what you send me. We can say response dot send as JSON, exactly what you sent me, right? Exactly what you sent me. So let's restart the server. Notice that it timed out, right? It was kind of waiting. The post was still waiting for the response that never came. Right, so I'm going to refresh this. So we're going to say form XYZ. Post. Notice that it's twice. Once the server gets it, this console over here is because of this first console. This one over here, right? The second one is because it got the response, right? We just echoed what you sent me. What do we want to do? We want to insert into a database, right? Let's insert into the database. So at the server level, what do we want to do? We want to instantiate a new form. We're going to say form var form equal new form with what data? Well, we created a couple before. What do? We said something like this with name, right? And we said form 1, 2, 3. Isn't that what we did? But isn't that exactly what's in the body? That's exactly what's in the body, right? So we could just say body. There it is. Okay. And that's going to go in the server, save it. Well, I'm sorry. Not yet. We have to say form.save. Yeah, save is what's going to insert into the database. Yes. Right. That's going to save in the database. And when it successfully inserts in the database, it's going to reply through a callback, you know, and give us if there was an error, right? And the actual form document that was inserted, right? And that's actually what we're going to console. We're going to display what actually got inserted, right? And that's exactly what we're going to respond with to the client. Yes? Right? All right, we'll stop that. Let's run this again. So now we go and nope. Well, let's look at the forms that we have so far. We have 3 forms, right? 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2. Right? Let's go to our client here. Let's reload, and let's create form RST. Right? So it's so the server is here listening. I'm going to do add. There it is. It received it. It responded. That doesn't look right. Let's go to the database. No, I didn't make it. Something is wrong. Did I restart the server? I forget. I don't remember anymore. Oh, wait, are we putting in the wrong post? Ah, it's in the wrong post. I'm editing the wrong file. It's this one, right? Sorry, it's this one. Did I just confuse everybody? I'm sorry. This is the post that we're editing, right? This is the one that was receiving, right? Slash forms, right? Slash forms. This post was just for testing. I'll remove it for no confusion. Right, this is the post, right? Okay, that's why it was responding with the echo, right? Because it didn't do anything. It just console was responding and then responding the same body. Okay, I'm going to paste it here. It instantiates the form, it saves it, and then it responds with what it inserted in the database. Let's try that again. Let's restart the server. Sorry for the confusion. Okay, let's create RST. Let's create ABC. Add. There it is. It comes back. Notice that it prints out the actual object that it got created. Right. Notice that it has an ID now. Right. And it echoed the object back. We can go to Mongo and do a find, and notice that ABC is there now. See that? Right? Okay. Well, in the UI, but notice the UI hasn't changed, right? The UI still doesn't have forms listed here. If we refresh, it goes and fetches the new one, right? But we don't want to have to refresh. Right? We want this to be handled in the back end, right? So what we could do. What we could do in the front end, we already have a function that gets all the forms, don't we? Right. So what we could do here is to put this in a function. Right. We could put this in a function. We put it in a function that says, function. I don't know. Get all forms. How's that? Okay, and in here, put the get. Right. Certainly, I'll call this the very first time. I'll call it by default, right? When this whole thing starts up, the very first thing that I do is call that function so that it gets the latest forms, yes, right? But then what I'll do here in the success of adding a new form, I'm going to call it so that it refreshes the data. Right? It refreshes. I'm going to say get all forms. Right? Get all forms. Let's try that. Let's refresh this. So if I say here form XYZ, add, there it is. It updates it. See that? Right? Without refreshing the page, everything is being done through Ajax, right? All behind the scenes. And this is what we mean as being responsive. You know, it's more responsive, right? But not, I don't mean responsive as in adapting to smaller screen. I mean that there is no refresh, right? There is no re-rendering of the entire page. Right? It's a very smooth transition experience for the user. This could be something else. Add, and there they are, right? The next thing we might want to do is delete, right? So let's add delete options to this, right? So let's go back here, and as this is rendering, we could add a button here for deletion, right? So let's create a button here. Delete. Let's go add that's the delete button, right? When they click on this button, I want to invoke. So ng click. I want to invoke remove. Okay. So here's I'm gonna create an event handler here that is called on that remove. So scope.remove function, and I'm gonna just say console log removing. If I click on delete, notice that removing gets called. See that? If I click again, it's just 2, 3, 4. You see that, right? But we need to know which one. You know, which one are you removing? Okay. What we could do is pass it the ID of the object that we want to remove, right? So what we could do is here. Notice that we have form. That's the object, right? We could pass the ID as an argument, right, and receive it here, ID. Okay, so removing, and we can print out the ID with what we want to remove. So here we have removing, and then the ID. See that? I have the ID in each button, right? Okay, that button is ugly. Let me paint it. Ng, class button danger. Careful. You know, you're removing, right? Anyway, so how do we do that? So what we want to be able to do is send a delete, just like we post to create. We do a get to read. To delete, we do a delete, right? So we do a $HTTP .delete, same URL, HTTP ://localhost :3000 /forms. That is the resource that we're manipulating, the forms. We're deleting a form. We need to provide the ID of that form, right? So we're going to provide the ID, so plus ID. Okay. And if everything is successful, it's going to notify us with a response. And we are going to do console.log response. Okay. Right. So we can send a delete, but we need to. The server needs to be ready to receive that delete. Yes. All right. So let's go back to the forms. Not this one. This one. So we'll create here an app listen for deletes, right, from the URL forms plus an ID, right, that we need to parse out. Yes. Function request response, and we're going to remove. We're going to do form.remove. Remember, we did this. Oh no, wait. Forms, right? Form with form, right? Form dot remove, and then the predicate, right? We're going to remove by ID, right? So we're filtering where the attribute ID is equal to the ID that is in the request. So it's a request, get it from the parameters ID, right? And then if everything goes fine, MongoDB will notify us either with an error or with the count, how many were removed. Yes? And then we can respond. We can do a response dot send back or send status count, or 200, meaning it was successful, right? All right, so let's see. Let's do this. Let's refresh and click and remove this, and it died. Oh, I need to restart the server, I believe. Let me restart the server. Did you hear that? Silence. All right, let's start the server. Okay. Refresh. Let's look at Mongo, all the forms in there. We have ASDs, whatever. Let's remove this one, right? Let's click on delete. Okay, we received an OK. Let's look at ASD is not there anymore. But then in the UI never refresh, right? So we do F5, it's no longer there, right? What we could do is in the UI, get them, right? Get. Now I'm going to the server to get all of these, right? Typically this would become very chatty, right? I delete and then I go get everything else again, right? Typically what I would do is have a cache. I have a cache of the data model here in the client. I would have my own array, yes, and make sure that that array is synchronized with the array of the backend, right? And it's my responsibility to make sure that those are in sync. Or I just get the whole thing, right? And I'm always working with the latest. That make sense, right? So let's see. Let's remove a couple things. So let's remove that one, that one, that one. So I'm removing and updating, or I'm creating new ones, right? I can create a whole bunch of these, or delete them. That make sense, right? The only other thing we might want to do is update. I want to change the name of a form, right? So for instance, I might select a form. So as I'm iterating, I might have another button, right? With this one select this one for update. Yes. This is not a danger. Maybe this is a warning, right? And I want to call select, and I'm selecting that ID, right? So let's refresh. I notice that we have a select there, but we don't have a function. We don't have a function select. Let's create one. Let's create a select, a $scope.select function and the ID. Again, I could use the cache, right? The what's cached already in the UI, but instead I'm going to go get it from the database, because that's what's interesting. You're getting things from the database, right? So let's get a hold of that. So it'll be $HTTP get, right? And it's HTTP : / localhost. Notice that this service could live anywhere in the world, right? As long as I have the IP address, right? I can go to hold of it. 3,000 forms, right? And I'm giving the ID. Notice that the URL is exactly the same as this one. See that? But this is a delete and this is a get. Right? So it knows which one you mean, right? And if the success is going to do a function, the response. Right, and do a console log response. Okay. Okay. Now we have to go to the server side and actually implement this get. Or did we do this already? I forget. Maybe we did it already. I think we did. Didn't we? Let me see. Get. These are all of them, right? And then, okay, yeah, we did do create. Yeah, forms ID. We have that one already. We have that one already. And response with the form found by ID. Right, so we don't have to implement it anymore. So if I say F5 and I click here, it gets that one. You see that? It gets form 123 or form 321. You see that? Right? All right. So what we're going to do, basically now I need to basically update the UI. Maybe put it here. Maybe a button here that says update. Right? So let's do that. Let's go into the UI. Right, going to the UI, and let's create another button here that is for updates. And so I'll call this update. Call this update, and call this success. So it's green. This update. So whenever I set this, and if I change it, I'll update it. Yes. So first I need to populate this. I need to populate it. So let's populate it. So notice that the UI already declares this as a form object, right? So it's okay. So I can just get it, right? I can say, I have the response. I can say $scope form, right? There's already an object called form in the UI. Already has a field name, right? So it maps perfectly with the response because the response has a name attribute, which is going to map perfectly with the name variable in the UI. The only thing that doesn't match is an ID. But it's okay. Even though it's not rendered, it's part of the object. It's there. Okay. So if I click here, notice that it updates form 123 or form 321, right? It selects it. So now I have to do the update, right? It's fetching it from the database, right? It's populating my UI. I need to create the update, right? So if I change it, right, I like to be able to click on update, and it goes and posts and puts this data back in the database, right? So let's do that. This update is going to call update. So I'm going to call a function here, $scope.update equal function, right? And where do we have the data? It's in the form, right? In the object that is the form. So it's really in the scope form, right? So we can do console log $scope form, and that's going to be our object, right? Form. Right, so if we select this and we update this to something, whatever, and we say update, that's the object noted with the new name, same ID though, right? Because we set it, right? It knows that's there. But we select this, right? We update. Notice that it remembers the ID. It knows the new name. We just gotta have to send it back to the server. This update, yes. So how do we do that? We do it with a put. Right? We do it with a put. We say $HTTP.put. Right? Same URL. Right? So it's HTTP : localhost : 3000 /forms/ I need the ID because I am updating something that already exists. Right? So I have to tell it what is the ID of that thing. Where is it? It's in scope forms ID, isn't it? Scope forms.id, right? Plus, I need to tell it the new data, right? Which is basically scope forms, right? There it is. Okay. If it's successful, it's going to notify me with saying yes, I was successful. So this will be function response, and do console log response. Okay. I don't believe we have the put on the server. Right. Let's create it. So here's a put. We're going to create a put app. That put is going to receive a put request as a forms. The ID of the form that we're updating. Right. Function request.response. The new form is where? Is in the body. Right. Is in the body. And what we need to do is update. We're going to say form. We're going to find the form first. Yes. Change all its attributes, right? And then save it back to the database. Okay. So let's find it. I believe we have a find. Don't we have a find already here? So I don't have to do it again. Find by ID somewhere. There it is. Right. So I'm going to copy that. We already have a find by ID. There it is. I found it. Now I'm going to change it. I'm going to say form. I'm going to change just the name, right? Form.name is equal to the request. It's in the body. .name. So this is the object that we passed. That includes the name, the ID, everything, right? I only want the name. I only want to update the name of the form, right? And then I want to save it back. Form.save. Save it back. Okay. Right. And once I save it, I'm going to respond successfully to the client saying yes, it was successful. Right. In the save, right? In the save, I'm gonna say function error and data. Right, and here I'm going to respond. I'm going to say response.send status 200. Everything's okay. Okay. Obviously, if there was an error, I would not send 200. I would send something else. Right? I would send the error code. Let's try that. See if it blows up. Okay. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I only have 2. Oh yeah, we deleted a whole bunch, right? Right, so let's refresh that. Let's refresh. So I want to select that, and I want to change it to something else. So the restart server. Thank you. That's what I was trying to do. Okay, let's refresh that. Let's select. Let me put a space here and update. Oops, something happened. Forms undefined. What happened there? In the UI. Form ID. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, thank you. Underscore ID. Thank you, yes. Let's do that, like that. Update. Okay, we are passing the ID. We are passing the ID. Let's see what is complained here. It says reference ID is not defined. Line 10. Line 10. Line 10 of forms. So view line number 10 ID. Oh, okay. It's this ID, right? Okay. It's really what? It's request.params.id, right? Params.id. Let's restart the server. Okay. Let's refresh. Select. Update. Okay. There was an OK, but notice that it didn't change. Let's refresh. It changed, right? So what we might want to do in that OK at the client, we can get everything else, right? So that it refreshes. All right, so let's see. I can change, update, and it changes, right? There we go. We demonstrated the ability of doing all the CRUD operations, right? From Angular, being able to send requests to Node.js, Node.js converting this as proxying to a database, the database responding asynchronously with those things, and then sending it back to Angular for updating the UI, right? So we've demonstrated a very simple, very trivial, mean, the entire stack of a mean application, right? In the front end, Angular, in the middle tier, you have Node.js with Express, and then in the database, MongoDB, right? I'm going to leave it here. Any questions? I'd like to spend some time talking about next week and the rubric a little bit. Is that okay? All right. Any questions from Seattle? Did we lose you guys? Okay, we have you there. Any questions? Okay, I'll take that as a no. Let's go to the rubric drive. F200. Oops. 14 fall projects. Okay. All right, there we go. Oops. Right. So these categories that we have up here. I don't know if you can see that. Let me see if I can make it bigger. these categories that you see over here, F1, F11. Some of them are optional, some of them are obviously mandatory. Obviously, the relational model, whether you used MongoDB or you used a relational model, right? It's mandatory, right? Yeah, you need to have tables or collections, fields or attributes, foreign keys, right? Now, obviously, depending on whether you use MongoDB or whether you use a relational model, this might be a little bit different. Okay, so that's mandatory, right? And basically, what we want to measure is there's one particular level of measuring the effort that you put into your project, right? This is one methodology that some project managers use to measure, how long a particular project might take, right? And every particular artifact that you need to add, whether it's a test case, whether it's a table, a field, a foreign key, that's effort, right? It's not free, right? You had to put some thought. It increases the complexity of the project. Yes. So one way to do this is count. How many foreign keys you have, how many fields, how many tables, every artifact that you have in your project. Yes, and we count them, right? And then we count also the number of object models, right? Whether it's Mongoose or whether it's Java DAOs or any service layers that are actually talking to the database. I want to know how many of these files. I know some of you have tons of these, tons of these DAOs. I want to give you credit for each single class that you created for, right? So we want to enumerate all these things that you create, every entity field, every entity class, every create method, every find one, find all, find by joining tables, every named query. Yes. Each one of these are this is effort that you put into it, right? Every update that you have, right? So definitely, whether you use Mongoose or whether you use some other ORM, we want to count and see the effort that you put into this. So on on Monday, Tuesday, whenever it's your turn, right? The first 5 to 10 minutes will be a presentation, right? You will show your UML diagram, right? This is my class diagram. You will show you'll talk to it a little bit, right? Showing how many there are and all the dependencies. You'll talk to also the use case analysis. I want to see the use case analyses. Yes, these are all the use cases. Please make sure that you list those things that you did complete. Maybe out of these 10 use cases, I was able to do 8 of them, right? I didn't do these 2. Okay. Out of the class diagram, please, all right, point out that this was the original. I believe I've met with most of you, and we have a picture of what was the original thing that we agreed on. Yes. And please point out those things that you weren't able to get to, right? So the first part of the presentation, first the use case analysis, right? Well, I'm sorry. First the problem statement, right? What is it that you were trying to solve? What problem you were trying to solve, right? So one slide on that. One slide on what is your particular solution, right? Then a use case analysis, right? Then a class diagram, okay? Then an architectural diagram on saying, these are, here's my server, here's my UI, these are the APIs and services that I'm connecting to, right? This is the database, and I'm using JSON, I'm using ORM, I'm using JPA, I'm using whatever you're using to communicate all these blocks, how they're talking to one another. Yes. So that shouldn't take you more than 10, 15 minutes. Okay. The next 15 minutes should be just demoing, right? Hopefully more like 15 to 20 minutes just demoing, just going through the whole thing. And make sure that you illustrate all the use cases, right? Well, not all of them. I don't think you have time to do all the use cases. But some of the use cases, the more interesting use cases, yes. And then the last 5 minutes, I would like to very quickly you show me, not the code. We're not going to get into the code, but peruse and just count. Maybe you can come with this already figured out. So I have 20 DAOs, 20 tables, so many fields. Already figured out already, right? I mean, you have access to the rubric, yes. Figure out over the weekend, whatnot, and we can just copy that information real quick onto our rubric. Yes, makes sense. If I'm missing here a category that you think you should get credit for, let me know. We'll add it. Okay. There are some categories that some of you might have not worked on. For instance, JWS. I'm pretty sure most of you did not do JWS. Okay. If that's the case, which is probably true, these 20 points will be spread over the other categories. Because you won't lose points because you didn't do JWS. Okay. Also, your client might have been all JSP, which is fine, which is perfect. Okay. So you might have not had any AJAX. Yes. Which is totally fine. But probably you are using AJAX to connect either from the web or from the back end. You are using some kind of client to connect to some API, yes? Right. So those are server-side web services, right? I think I showed you early on how to connect to a service from Java. That's a server-side web service client. It's a client, but it's a web service client, yes? From a server. Some of you might have done it from the client, from a web client, yes, from the browser, using Angular or something, right? Right. Either case, you might have used one architecture versus another. Typically, most of you, I think, you either did this or did that. Most of you, I think, didn't do both. Okay. If you did both, even better. Okay. You'll get even more points. Historically, in the user interface, if you have a button, if you have a field, if you have a table that you're iterating over and you're displaying a table of data, that's effort, right? Or if you're displaying it as a list or you're displaying as whatever, right? That's effort that you put into it, right? If you have a link, if you have an input field, a form, I want to know all these things. I want to count all these artifacts, right? They count as points. Yes. Historically, points have range in the hundreds. 150 points is something typical. 10 points for the tables, 10 points. 50 points for the fields, right? So many. 10 points for the DAOs. Another 20 points for all the puts, the deletes, all of those, right? So it ranges between 150 and 250 points. Okay, that will give us a baseline, and based on that effort, right, that we see that you put into it, we'll calculate a score for you. That makes sense? Okay. So this will give us, obviously, some of the projects I've seen, just by looking at it, right? It says, oh my goodness, this is an amazing project, right? I don't even have to look at anything. You have straight A, right? But that's very subjective, right? I mean, I want to see, right, really what kind of work went into it. Or some of you might have one that doesn't look as pretty, right? And it's not as flashy. But I still want to see obviously the effort that you want to put. I don't want to be subjective and say, oh well, this looks ugly and this looks pretty, and be biased, right, towards those that look pretty, right? Even if this is not a web development course, so really the front end, the look and feel doesn't weigh as much, right? But nevertheless, you do have some kind of user interface, regardless of whether it looks pretty or looks functional, right? I want to look at the effort that you put into it. Every button counts, every link counts, every table counts, right? Whether it looks pretty or not, I don't care. Right? I'll try not to care, but because I've seen some of yours. They're very flashy, they're very pretty. But again, this is not a web development course. Any questions? I have some of the schedules. Some of you are double booked. I don't know that you're all that you are all here. Projects. The first day, there are no double bookings, Monday. The second day, there are no double bookings. Some of you I changed. I don't know, you should have received a notification. I changed, trying to resolve these here. So the way we're going to handle that, I don't know, are you here, Abhishek? No? And Zishan, who? Are you here? No? Okay, we can't resolve it today. So the way we're gonna handle this, I mean, I think I said that we were only going to honor the first person. Okay, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna have a TA ready to catch any of these redundancies. Okay, so probably maybe I'll deal with the first one and the TA will deal with the second one. That makes sense? Right? Notice that you have 30 minutes. Let's please try and honor that. Okay? If you don't show up, it will not look good. Okay? We will be there. We'll be waiting for you, and you're taking somebody's spot. Okay? Right? It'll be very rude if you don't show up at that particular time. If you can't make it, make sure you notify us, and we'll try to accommodate you, but it's not guaranteed. Okay, we can't guarantee you. So that's a double booking. That's another double booking over here. That's another one. So everybody wants to go the last day, right? So yeah, so Thursday will be a very interesting day. Okay. All right. Any questions? No? Yes. Well, I don't know where you're going to go. I mean, they're all full. All the slots are full. Meaning, if you want, you can swap with someone else, maybe. Okay, that'd be okay. Right? We're going to try and have 2 people for every day. So 2 TAs, or me and a TA for every day. So if you show up and we weren't ready for you, there will be a TA there for the presentation is in Richards Hall. You know the building right here, Richards Hall, room 241, I believe. Is that the room? Okay. Please be on time. Have a PowerPoint presentation. Submission. What are you going to submit? What you're going to submit is you're going to push this your code to GitHub. Okay. If you don't know GitHub, it's time you learn about GitHub. You'll push it, and then what you're going to submit is a URL. Right? You're going to submit a URL to your GitHub account, to your GitHub repository, and we will be able to go in and look at all your code, right? And so whenever you're counting those DAOs and those fields, don't lie. Okay, don't tell us you'd have 20 DAOs when you really only have 10. Okay, we'll go back and everything is there in GitHub, so we'll be able to go see your code. Also, if you have portions of your application that does not work, I would appreciate it that you tell us which portions don't work, right? Don't let us waste time trying to find out that this piece doesn't actually work. Okay? It's better if you just come out clean and tell us, this I didn't get to this piece. That could be the last slide. Your last slide could be, this is what I didn't get to do, and this will be, additional work that could be done. All right? Anything else? Yes. I'm sorry? Yeah. That's okay, but in the 15 minutes of the demo, anyone should be able to answer any question. Okay? Also, I would like to record the presentation. Just like we're recording each presentation here, I would like to keep it, for instance, the Seattle folks, especially for the Seattle folks, I'd like to have a Google Hangout with those in Seattle, and you presenting and sharing your screen from Seattle, and then we can have the presentation recorded. Right? Is that okay? Anybody screen shy? All right. Seattle, everybody okay over there? You have any questions from Seattle? Let's stop sharing. Are we allowed to use struts 2 and my Bates framework in our final project? Sure. If you know how to use struts 2, that's fine. Are the times Eastern? Yes, all times are Eastern. Oh, that might be a problem. Are there anyone who has PvP or something those times? You should make sure you let me know, and we can accommodate you if you have some other class doing those times, those days in Seattle. Well, here too. I don't know. Do you have anything happening on some other day? I hope not. All right. Anything else? All right. I think we're all set. I'd like to thank you all. I really enjoyed this class. It was an honor spending this time with you and sharing all this information. I hope you enjoyed it. The course evaluation should be available. You should receive an email. Please take some time to evaluate the course, especially if you enjoyed it. But even if you didn't, it'd be valuable feedback for me, and certainly helps us improve. Yeah, so please take some time to evaluate the course. Okay. You too at Seattle. I'm sorry that it was a little bumpy at first. But I think at the end we were able to fix that, and I think we made it a success. I hope you feel the same. I'd like to thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Seattle. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Seattle. Good night.
What is the database?